So hi, I'm Courtney Pavoni, and I'm a senior digital strategy manager for Assurant. I specialize in email marketing and website optimization.
Excellent. Great. So as I say, put your questions in the box as we go. I'm going to ask Courtney to take us through a couple of case studies today, which are going to be talking around the testing and some success that they have seen recently. And then we'll come back and look at a few best practices as you kind of start thinking about your own email marketing testing. But without any further ado, Courtney, should we start talking around the first case study?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So this was a creative test that we wanted to perform for one of our last effort campaigns. This is it's a series of 6 emails. And so this last effort was the 6th email that a consumer could receive. We were seeing a very low and declining engagement and conversion rate with this email. And so we wanted to do a creative test to get people to click through more. The control was kind of text heavy and lacked a clear sense of urgency. And it looked really invoicey and boring. And so we wanted to kind of, I don't want to say jazz it up a bit, but we wanted to just try a different approach creatively. And so what we ended up doing is doing an A/B split test. We ended up adding a variable lifestyle image based off of what the consumer's product related to. So if it was a particular product, they would see one lifestyle image. And if it was a different product, they would see a different lifestyle image, just to add a little bit of a personal touch there. And then we also wanted to highlight the sense of urgency in the email copy. So we just kind of rearranged the copy a little bit, and then softened the copy up. So it was more of a personal tone versus kind of an invoicey tone. And then we also added an additional CTA and some text links because the original control only had one CTA. And with those changes, we saw some really positive results. And so what happened is our click-through rate increased by 49%. We increased our conversions by 39%. And since we've implemented this test, we've never been able to beat it. We continue to retest it over and over. And this particular creative has just stuck with our consumers, and we continue to keep it in our last effort campaign for this series. So it was a really good test for us to execute, just to see that something small, even not doing a full creative test, but just highlighting different areas of the email really added to our results.
Excellent.
So that was
how soon did you start seeing the kind of the results? How long did you leave it, Courtney, before you kind of started assessing the success of this campaign? That's
a really great question. I was looking back at this campaign, and this ended up being a longer test for us. Generally we try to get significance at 95%, but this one, because of the volume that we see coming into this campaign, it did take longer than 3 months. So it was something that we were just kind of being patient and waiting and finally seeing the test take over the control. But there are different campaigns that we do test that we can see a result in 2 weeks where we hit significance. So it just really depends on the volume that we're seeing come through the campaign. And with this one, it just took a little bit longer.
Excellent. Yeah, and we can come to talk about some of the best practices with testing shortly, but I think, the giving it time and seeing that, the time to assess is a key one there. Something I should have mentioned at the beginning, yes, this is being recorded. We just got a question coming in there. And will be shared for folks to re-review, or those that have signed up and are watching on backup. Obviously, it's been recorded because that's what you're now watching. Also, a question in: can we see the creative? Not in this case because of the the compliance against these customers for Assurant. But we want to talk through and explain how the successes were seen and the challenges in the background of these 2 success stories. So. Excellent. Shall we move on to the second?
Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, so this is another series of 6 emails, which sounds like a lot, but the way that we have our emails set up today is just based off of timing and when that consumer will receive their effort. This particular email was our third email in the series, and we started to see a decline in engagement just because it was mid-series. Customers just weren't really paying attention to the email. They weren't clicking through. And so again, we wanted to do another creative test where we took the control, which really included a header, a paragraph, a button, and some bulleted benefits. It was very, very simple. And what we wanted to do was just kind of rearrange that particular email. And so what we did is we did keep a header graphic, but we rearranged the copy. So it was more, again, more conversational. We added some other CTAs, different buttons and different copy in the CTA. And then we also added a small graphic that we have never used before that really kind of just took the email and added a little bit of visual interest, I guess you can say, to it. And so what has happened from this email with this change, we have seen a increase in our click-through rate by 95%, which is quite a bit. Our conversion rate did increase by 51%, and then our average order size, we saw a 16% increase. This was an example of an email that took off right away. I think we ended up doing this in, I want to say it was, let me just double check here. It was 16 days to hit significance. And so this is just one of those situations where we weren't expecting it to take off that quickly. But when it did, we flipped it pretty fast just so that we could take advantage of the extra conversions that we were seeing. And again, this campaign is still in our production today. We're seeing this campaign with the highest click-through rate in the full series. And so the effort to really do that creative test has done well for us.
Excellent, excellent. We've got a question come in actually, which we can address now. It came in during the first success, or I think it works for both in terms of and the question is, was that run over multiple campaigns or the result of one single email sent?
Yeah, so it was, we do our test on one single email. There are times where we will do a full campaign test. When we do a full campaign test, they're generally a large creative test. But we do try to pinpoint, the campaigns in our series that are not performing as well. And we may do a creative test, we may do a subject line test. It's just really dependent on the metrics that we have for that particular campaign. But in these two cases, it was just one email within that series.
Excellent. I've got a question as well, actually. You were talking around the different imageries for both of them, actually, and the use of a graphic there. And then we're looking at this fantastic click-through rate. Just talk us through kind of the type of images that you weren't using and then were using, and the graphic, and were people clicking on those images to help increase that click-through rate?
Yeah, absolutely. So the control for this situation, it didn't have any imagery at all. The header was just a graphic header. By adding the graphic that we did, I think it just tied into what the campaign is about. The customers really were, seeing the graphic and they're kind of relating to what the campaign is about. Then we added a CTA close to the graphic, and that really, I think, allowed customers to click through without having to go all the way down to the end of the email. We do see a lot that when we add two CTAs within our emails, customers will scroll all the way down to the bottom and click through at the bottom, but we give them an opportunity to click through at the top and the bottom as well. So that graphic really, we weren't expecting the graphic to behave as it did, but it really helped with the engagement of this particular test.
Yeah, I think that's important. And as I say, we'll come to some testing ideas in a minute, but I think when you've hit the one there in terms of the, within Adestra, you can use it as a reporting heat map. So you can see the creative within the reporting screens of Adestra, and it will show you with the brighter the color, the more clicks it's got on it. So, as you tie different lengths within different emails, I think it's important to see, are people get, like as Courtney says, they're getting right down to the bottom, which is great. You can soon see, and you will see natural drop off. You'll usually get more clicks at the top than the bottom. But if you're testing new content or new creative, then you might see some anomalies which kind of are further down and getting more clicks. So you can, again, that provides you some great intelligence, even if it's not a test email, to think, okay, well, this is really engaged. Should we move that kind of content maybe up maybe up a little bit, or make more content around that particular subject where they're clicking.
That's right. Yeah.
I have another question has come in, which we can address now because it's focusing on these case studies, which is, are you always running one variant per test?
No, we will do, I think we've done up to 5 variants on a test. So it really does depend on the type of test that we're running. We do a lot of ABC split testing, just to see if one element might make a difference. And there are times where we will run an AB split test, and maybe the test and the control are kind of tied up. At that time, we'll then kind of reevaluate what we're doing and then add a third test cell to see if that's going to push the needle even further. And then there are times where we have, we'll do 5, which seems like a lot, but then we will remove some to see if, the test B and test C are going to outperform then the control. So it just really depends on the type of tests that we're running and the results that we're seeing. We're very, very good about pulling results weekly. We're analyzing the results. We're trying to see how it ties into our revenue, and we make decisions based on those data points.
Excellent. Are you able to share the industry that we're talking around here, Courtney?
Yeah, sure. So this is a warranty industry that we're in. And so I'm a part of the team at Assurant, who is the direct to consumer team. And so it's all around different warranty types.
Excellent. And what we're talking around here is emails further down the series. So we're getting to the point where you sort of bringing in a little bit more urgency into the content, into the kind of tone of voice.
Yes.
Excellent. Cool. Alrighty. Well, we've got thank you for those. Let's talk a bit more generally, and we can look at some best practices around testing. So if I move on to the next slide. So we'll go to some examples in a minute. And again, there's so many things you can do here, but I think if we can just focus on some main points around this kind of best practice, and we can look at some potential testing types that we can do, and then we'll come to any further questions that we've got in the question box. So as a rule, identify your goal, know what you're trying to achieve. In this case, warranty sales, but it could be whatever your goal is here. It could be event subscriptions, it could be selling something, it could be obtaining more information about your subscribers through data sign up and so on. So, what are you trying to achieve here, and what are you testing to get to that conversion? So just remember keeping your goals in mind, and focus on the planning. It's a lift at the beginning to sort of work out, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to get this planning underway? Are we going to run, as Courtney was talking around, multivariant? Are we going to run some split testing? How long are we going to run that for? Factor that into the planning of a campaign, and allow time for it to happen, to review those results. As we spoke about during the case studies there, it might take a little bit of time for some significant results to come through before you can start making those decisions, before you can start understanding things that you might not expect to happen, because you'll know best. Trust yourself to think, right, I think this is probably what's going to happen. Let's test that theory to see what's going to work. And you might be surprised. So allow time for that results review to come back in. Give yourself significant or statistical significance. So if you've got smaller lists, maybe send it a few times before you start making decisions based on the back of the results. And then that kind of ties in with repeat. Run it again, see if there's anything that's changed there, potentially with the initial learnings that you've got there, with the different variants, and testing on potentially one thing at a time, be it subject line or creative, or the imagery that Courtney was talking around there. So always have that in mind. So focus on your goals. So never lose sight of understanding what you're trying to achieve with the email campaign, which you would do when planning any email campaign, but especially when you've got your testing in mind as well. Don't veer from those goals. Test to try and make better what you're trying to do in the first place with those emails. I've just thrown down some kind of tactics, some examples of the kind of thing that you might want to be testing, and there's a whole very spectrum of things you can test there. From the subject line with Adestra, we've got a subject line creation tool using AI, which is great. So again, it gives you that starting point to give some subject line suggestions based on your initial one, so you can immediately hit that button. Okay, here's some examples. Let's hit the split test button, and away you go. And again, there's different ways of doing that, and it can all be set up through the platform as well. You might do a 50-50. Right, let's just split this in half, see which one performs best, take the information back, and make some decisions from that point. Or you can say, okay, especially with larger lists where you can get that statistical significance, you might say send 25% A, 25% B, and then look at a specified metric, click rate, probably a good one, after however many hours, and then the best performing one, send the remaining 50% that one. So you're kind of taking out some, you're creating that, it's almost an automation path using the intelligence from that test. But so we've got some examples here. The subject line, the one that Courtney talked about was tone as well, different kind of tone, more friendly language, more conversational, which some people will respond to better, especially when you're asking them to do something. In this case, part with some money, which is going to be a harder one to do than maybe give us a little bit more information. Don't forget that value exchange as well. If you are asking for those kind of things, what are they going to get in return? Tell them they're going to get that better experience from the email going forward, more personalized experience as well. Try some emoji use, see how that goes. It'll resonate with some, it might not resonate with others, but see how it goes and try that out. And then from a call to action point of view, buttons, great images, graphics, personalized, a little bit more, the wording a little bit more friendlier. So rather than just click here, it could be find out more or learn how you can save now. Give that a go as well. Some people will respond to the shorter form, some the longer form. You can start making those decisions on there. The content we kind of talked about there with the tone, the urgency, length we mentioned during the case studies, which is something to test to make sure people are getting down to the bottom. So you're not putting important information at the bottom, which people potentially are using. So again, reviewing those results to see which is more successful. Timing, that's an important one as well. When are people going to be most likely to do what you want them to do for the email, to convert? And within the Adestra, we've got a personalized send time feature as well, which will, over time, take information in. So you can then hit send on an email effectively, and it will send out at the right time per recipient within a set, say a 12-hour period, when they're most likely to click or convert or whatever metric that you've set there. So that's important that you can start testing that as well. But again, you can without using that, sending at different times if you're in a single time zone, or if you're multi-time zones, bear that in mind as well, and see which one resonates most. The people responding, if they're getting the email before it's one of the first things they're seeing in the morning, or is that getting lost in the morning's email? So trying that out and seeing which works best. And then you can also always create audiences based on certain identified patterns as well. So some people resonate. We know that this person or this enclave has really resonated with a certain type, so let's keep sending them that type, so we can create different lists and dynamic lists and so on as well. So you're kind of acting on that testing straight away. And another big one, obviously, is frequency too. How many is too many and how many is not enough? So finding that out. There's no right answer to that. Especially with some of the seasonality clients, customers that we've got sent that do events and so on. It's an annual event, kind of keeping people, engaged throughout the year. They know they're going to get more coming up to an event, but keeping them engaged and excited and trying to learn a little bit more, using some testing tactics throughout the year, so they get a better experience when it comes around to that event going forward. Cool. So there's many things you can test, but yeah, key thing is identifying your goals. Put the planning in, make sure that you've kind of got a starting point so you know what you're trying to achieve, you know what you're testing, not muddling up too many different types in one test because you don't know what the success metric has been from that point, and then giving yourself enough time to review the results, start making those decisions. And I think one of the kind of key things is, and I see a question's coming about it really, so we'll jump to that in a second. So in fact, let's dive to the let's ask questions slide, and we'll get to a couple that we have already. Cool. What's one for you, Courtney? These are great results, which they are. Do you have any plans for further testing?
Yes, we're always testing.
Excellent.
I have a test calendar that I put together at the end of every year. And what I do is I look through all of our different campaigns. So I'm sending a lot of emails. There's 100 different campaigns I send every week. And so I'm really looking at our stats. I'm trying to find the emails that are not performing as well. I'm coming up with test plans for those, whether it's a subject line, a creative test, or a multivariate test. And then I have a calendar that I try to stick to. So every Friday, I set aside time to focus on executing or setting up a test for the next week. So yes, there's always time. Well, there's not always time, but there's always tests to be done. So we definitely have tests going at all times.
Excellent. We've got a couple coming around kind of the segmentation side of it as well. Are you sending a broader range of, are you sending to most of your data or a wider portion of your database, i.e. less segmented to the test versions, or are you segmenting first and creating segmentation and personalized audiences and then testing? Or is it a combination of both?
Well, yeah. So the way that our lists work today, the list I have importing this week is gone by next week. I have a whole another set of consumers coming in. So it's really a straight up, I'm putting the test into automation, and the list is going through each week. It's different consumers each week. So they're in a particular campaign. That's the commonality, but it's not necessarily the same consumer that's getting the email every single week, if that makes any sense. So
it does, yeah, absolutely, because people will sign up for the warranty and then they don't need to get it again. So it's very specific to that industry. Yeah. But I think, where you've got a kind of more newsletter-y type campaign where people are getting a consistent experience. And I think that one of the things as well to mention is folks will recognize the from name and the subject line, well, not necessarily maybe the type, the tone, what the kind of email is going to be probably expected to look like, especially if it's kind of regular newsletter type email. So not changing it up too much is key as well, because you've got to lose that brand identity as well. So testing little subtle areas, I think, is quite a good idea. We have got a question. It wouldn't be a 2025 webinar without this one. How can AI help with the testing of emails? Well, I think we mentioned a couple of Adestra features there, the subject line generator and the personalized send time, which we worked through. And our approach is let's get AI in at the right time to solve certain problems. And what those two are doing is saving time and helping you test as well. Our mantra here around AI is replacing tasks, not strategy. You know best as the email marketer to make those choices around testing. So we're going to, and we will continue to develop with our personas as well, different ways that we can help you get to the kind of the testing point quicker. But then trust yourself to look at the interpretation of the patterns and the results and so on. So yeah, there are tools that you can do. Some already built into Adestra, and it always comes with a word of caution when I'm talking around AI in terms of using other platforms, especially around data security as well. So putting in the planning, using your own knowledge first, and then using AI to help with some of the tasks. Hey, give us 5 subject lines, which pick a few, test a few, saving time in that way. So which kind of relates to the next question which is coming, which is quite good. This all sounds good, but we've already had a busy, we're already busy with this. We don't have enough resources. What would you suggest? Well, I think that there is, using those AI tools, for example, to save some time to get the planning in there. But I would, testing should be or can be always on. So every campaign that's going out, what are we going to learn with each one that goes out? Every email you're sending, you're learning something new anyway. People are clicking in certain areas. You're getting those email metrics come back in, be it from Solus ones or part of an automated campaign sequence as well. You can always learn there. But I think that initial testing plan does take a bit of effort. If you get that right, factor that into the campaign building, then you're going to learn a lot more and then see some great success. So yeah, understand folks are busy, resources are stretched, but if you can just get some simple planning testing in there, use some AI tools within the platform as well to set you on your way with subject lines and personalized send times and so on. You shouldn't be adding too much to the work of the already stretched email marketer. Cool. Okay, it's a good one to end on. We've got 5 minutes left. What should I do first when it comes to thinking about testing? So I kind of almost like what do we want to do first? Courtney, what would you suggest from that point of view?
I always look at data first. That's just my go-to. And then I also look at the heat maps in Adestra. That really helps guide some decisioning around what consumers are really interested in. are they even clicking? What are they like? What are they reading? What are they doing? I don't know where your consumers are landing, but we also look at our metrics on our website to see what they're doing once they get there. Or is there a correlation between the email and the landing page that we could improve? So there's a lot of variables that we look at prior to testing. But a test could be as simple as changing a button color just to get someone to click through more. You never know what color might be more reactive for a consumer. And it may not fit with your brand, but at least try something that's close, just to execute something, or just a line of copy as well. So it could be as simple as that, or it could be as complicated as a whole creative test.
Excellent. Yeah, completely agree. I will go back as well to what you should do first is the planning part. We talked about it just a minute ago from the previous question, but I think just allowing enough time to think there, because that, as Connie mentioned, data is key. That's your most powerful asset in a lot of cases for the email marketer. So once you're sending it out and you're getting that feedback being metrics, being opens, non-opens, clicks, non-clicks. So using that intelligence to then inform the next campaign, even if it's not got a split test in it. If you haven't set up a campaign test for potentially all of your automated campaigns as well, using that information to say, right, okay, this was unexpected behavior. This one's getting more than this one. Let's use that. Maybe let's test that. Maybe let's say, okay, let's put this bit of creative or this link that's done well at the bottom of the email that we've seen in the heat map at the top and see how that goes. Does that then get all of the traffic and then whatever's getting down below is getting lost? Maybe it's time to split it into 2 campaigns. So many decisions you can go. Which, and that's not what AI can help with. It can help with your kind of tasks and getting to that point, but your customers best, your strategy best, so trusting yourself to kind of make those decisions. But yeah, using each campaign as a test is good. And I think another kind of key point as well, just Courtney mentioned throughout the case studies, is having a control as well. Not going crazy, understanding what success is. Has this performed better than the campaign that we sent without these changes in? Excellent. Well, I think we're pretty much at time. So hopefully people found that useful. We will share this so you can go back. Any questions you can fire our way as well with the follow-up there. But Courtney, thank you for taking us through those examples of your testing success. Excellent. All right, we shall end the event now, and thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.